Anna Marie Filzer boarded the SS Munich from her native Germany on a one-way ticket to the United States in February 1929. As she boarded, Anna dreamed of a new life in America, free from the constraints of her uptight family. Little did she envision, however, that her new life would include becoming one of the most notorious killers in Ohio history. From the South Shore of Lake Erie, this is Great Lakes True Crime. Before we go any further, just a couple announcements. If you really like the show, be a friend, tell a friend about it. That really helps. Also, if you haven't given us a 5-star review, please do so. That also really helps. You can find us on Twitter and Facebook. Just search for Great Lakes True Crime. Anna Marie Filzer was born in July 1906 in Bavaria, in a small town less than 1 mile from the Austrian border. She was the youngest of 12 children, though 5 of her siblings had died by the time Anna was born. Her father, George, was a furniture maker and did quite well in the business. The family was very well off financially and were considered to be a pillar of the local community. As a young woman, Anna was blonde, very attractive, and a bit spoiled by her parents. At the age of 19, she had a baby out of wedlock, a boy named Oscar. Anna claimed that Oscar's father was a physician from Vienna, Austria, named Max Maczewski, who was also a prominent cancer researcher. It's unlikely that anyone really believed Anna, however, as it turned out that no doctor with that name existed in Austria at the time, and aside from that, the story seemed pretty far-fetched. Their daughter having a baby out of wedlock was most inconvenient at the time for a prominent family like the Filzers, who were very conscious of maintaining their social status in their local community of Fussen. The Filzers were, for lack of a better term, big fish in a small pond. When Anna set off to live with relatives in Ohio a few years later, her parents hoped their 22-year-old daughter would settle down into a quiet, domestic life. Anna, however, seemed to have other plans. Anna disembarked from her ship in New York and immediately took a train to Cincinnati, Ohio. She was enthralled by the city along the Ohio River, which was a major Midwestern center of industry and culture with lots of German immigrants. Her Aunt Anna and Uncle Max, with whom she was staying, wanted Anna to get work as a housekeeper as soon as possible. They had lent her $236 for the transatlantic voyage, which would equal about $3,700 US today, so this was not an insignificant amount of money they lent her. Anna stayed with her aunt and uncle on Evanston Avenue in Cincinnati for about 1 month, and then, without any warning, moved out of the house and into a boarding room in a house elsewhere in town. She rarely saw her relatives after moving out, and the aunt and uncle eventually realized that Anna had no intention of repaying the money she owed them. Anna quickly attracted a sizable number of male admirers, many of whom were happy to help out with her loans that she used to pay her rent. And to gamble. It seems that Anna had a penchant for gambling at casinos in the area and betting on horse races at her local track. Her dream was that she would win enough money betting on horses to bring her son Oscar to live with her in Cincinnati. Later, in 1929, Anna found a job as a chambermaid in a ritzy hotel called the Hotel Alms, but continued to live well beyond her means thanks to the generosity of her male suitors. One of her admirers, Carl Oswald, not only lent Anna money, but also let her take up residence in a vacant room in his apartment. At 71 years of age, Carl, whose given name was Charles, was significantly older than Anna. When moving into his apartment, she told her friends that she was moving in to take care of her Uncle Charlie. Carl was a retired baker and had lost his wife earlier that year in April. He was more than happy to have an attractive young woman who claimed to have nursing experience move in and look after him. Anna helped around the house, cooking and cleaning, and also provided plenty of affectionate flirting with Carl. And Carl quickly fell in love with Anna. He wasted no time. Anna agreed to marry him that November and convinced Carl to transfer his 99 shares of Union Gas and Electric into her name. He also provided her with lots of spending money, most of which she used to bet at the racetrack. They never did end up getting married. I believe you kids today would call this a sugar daddy. So Anna found herself with plenty of money and loads of free time while living rent-free with Carl. She spent a lot of time at a nearby amusement park, often with a male companion not named Carl. She soon met a 26-year-old handsome but unassuming man named Philip Hahn at a dance she attended. Philip was a fairly quiet guy and couldn't believe his luck in finding such a beautiful woman. For her part, Anna was likely happy to find a young man with a stable job who she could easily dominate. They were married on May 5th, 1930. But even after marrying Philip, Anna still had access to Carl's money, and the following year she went back to Germany to bring her son Oscar to Cincinnati with her. When she came back home, Anna, Oscar, and Philip moved into a small house in an area of the city known as the College Hill District. It was more than a year into the marriage that Carl found out that Anna had gotten married. He was furious. So furious, in fact, that he sued Anna for breach of promise. He wanted that Union Gas and Electric stock returned to him, as well as all the cash she had taken, plus 6% interest. Anna must have laid on the charm thick, though, because Carl ultimately dropped the case. He died about a year and a half later, in August 1935. Anna was the beneficiary of his estate, but only received $1,000. That's all that was left by that time. Philip, Anna's husband, eventually got tired of working nights at the telegraph company, so he left that job and opened up a delicatessen with Anna, who sold her shares of stock to fund their new business venture. The only problem was, neither of them were very good at operating a deli, and whatever small profits it did make, Anna used to bet on the horses. So the deli didn't last long, but undeterred, the couple opened another deli just a few doors down. Business wasn't any better there, though, and it wasn't long before Philip and Anna had a number of creditors looking to get paid. Anna had it all under control, though. In early 1935, the delicatessen mysteriously had a fire, although it wasn't catastrophic. Then the Hahn's house had a mysterious fire, twice. The house had 2 fires, and all 3 fires resulted in payments by the insurance company to Anna and Philip. After the fires, Anna decided to take out a life insurance policy on Philip, with herself as the sole beneficiary. The policy was for $25,000, which is close to $500,000 in today's money. Needless to say, considering Anna's schemes to make money any way possible, this made Philip very nervous. His nervousness shifted to full panic mode when he suddenly became seriously ill with pain, vomiting, and a high fever. His mother took him to the hospital, and after a few days, Philip fortunately recovered. For whatever reason, perhaps she knew that Philip was on to her schemes, or maybe she had a momentary bout of guilt, Anna laid off Philip and moved on to find other means of separating people from their money. The Hahns moved out of their home in College Hill and into a very large house owned by a retired man named Ernst Kohler. Ernst lived on the third floor and divided the rest of the house into apartments, one of which the Hahns lived in. After they moved into the Kohler house, Philip got a job driving a taxi at nights, so again he had no idea what Anna was up to during the day while he was sleeping. She was actually doing some work for Ernst Kohler, cleaning the house and doing other housework for him. Like others before him, Ernst was quickly enamored with Anna, enough so that he added her to his will after only knowing her for a few weeks. When Ernst died a couple years later, his family was shocked to learn that Anna Hahn had inherited his entire estate, the multi-unit house, all of its furnishings, and his life savings of $13,000, which equates to approximately $272,000 today. With all their outrage, however, Ernst's relatives were powerless to do anything about it. His will was valid, and Anna cashed in. While Ernst Kohler's will was seemingly valid, his death was not exactly natural. In fact, it seems that Anna helped Ernst out of this world by giving him massive doses of morphine. One of the other tenants in the large house they lived in was a doctor, and Anna took some of his prescription pads and illicitly obtained various drugs, including the morphine. And with Ernst Kohler out of the way, Anna moved on to scam other victims, including close friends and neighbors. One scam included again presenting herself as a traveling nurse, this time to unsuspecting 72-year-old Albert Palmer, who was a retired railroad worker. She met Albert in 1936 at a local casino, and in little time the pair began taking day trips around the Cincinnati area. Before long, Anna became Albert's caretaker, a job that included preparing his meals. Not surprisingly, she began taking large loans from him, of course having no intention of repaying them. When Albert finally had enough, he demanded that Anna start repaying him. Soon after, he became violently ill with horrible diarrhea and stomach cramps after eating one of Anna's meals, and died on March 26, 1937. Next up was a 72-year-old retired gardener named Jacob Wagner. Anna showed up at Jacob's house in May 1937, less than 2 months after Ernst Kohler's death. Instead of using the traveling nurse routine, this time Anna claimed to be Jacob's long-lost niece from Germany, a story that he didn't buy. But Anna kept at it, and using her charm, she soon inserted herself into Jacob Wagner's everyday life. Soon enough, Jacob's bank books and other valuables started to go missing, and he naturally questioned Anna about it. After not relenting in his questioning of her, she suddenly found his bank account in Jacob's apartment. He was willing to forgive Anna, though, because he was so smitten with her. Less than 2 weeks after meeting Jacob, a neighbor witnessed Anna pour a large glass of orange juice for him on a warm afternoon. Later that night, Jacob became violently ill. He would die 2 days later, on June 1st, 1937. Even after such a brief acquaintance, Anna was the sole beneficiary of Jacob's estate and inherited $17,000, which is the equivalent of over $320,000 today. The German immigrant community of Cincinnati was a tight-knit group back then, and at this point, people started to talk. Anna became a known figure in the area, and there was a great deal of suspicion brewing over her with regard to Jacob's death. Police got involved and learned the story about Anna at first claiming to be his niece. They started investigating Jacob's death and spoke with Olive Kohler, no relation to Ernst Kohler, who lived in Jacob's apartment building and was a supporter of Anna. The two had become friendly, with Anna even buying Olive an ice cream cone on 2 separate occasions. The only problem was, Olive had become very ill after eating the second one. She was so ill that she had to be hospitalized, and while in hospital, someone had stolen a bag filled with jewelry and cash from her apartment. Olive never suspected Anna, though, because she had been so nice to her. Police wrapped up their investigation into Jacob's death without being able to pinpoint the murder on Anna, nor did they even conclude that he had been murdered. The coroner had attributed his death to heart disease, and there was little evidence uncovered to change that conclusion. 67-year-old George Zellman was Anna's next victim. He died on July 6th, just over a month after Jacob Wagner's death, and bequeathed $15,000, or about $283,000 in today's money, to Anna. With all this money coming into Anna, it's difficult to imagine what she did with it all. Knowing that she loved to bet on the horses and visit casinos, I suspect she lost a lot of it gambling. And keep in mind that while all this killing was going on, Anna had her son, Oscar, and husband, Philip, at home. Philip was still working nights for Western Union during this time frame. It's been suggested that he may have suspected what Anna was up to, and possibly even knew outright what she was doing, but kept silent for his own safety. We'll never know for sure, though. Anna's next scheme was a bit more involved and complex. George Obendorfer had finally found the one. He was totally smitten with Anna and couldn't believe his fortune when Anna invited him to travel out west with her and her son to settle down in a home together. The three of them ventured by train to Colorado Springs, Colorado, where George became violently ill. In fact, by the time they arrived, he was in so much pain that he could barely walk. While George suffered in pain at the Park Hotel, Anna and Oscar enjoyed the local sights, sounds, and cuisine of Colorado Springs, all funded by George, of course. Eventually, George ended up in a local hospital. By this time, his money had run out, and Anna had abandoned him there, even telling authorities that she had never met the man before. Police did not believe her, though, especially when her story kept changing by the day. After George passed, an autopsy was ordered, and it was found that George Obendorfer had died from arsenic poisoning. When police came looking for Anna, she was nowhere to be found, so Colorado Springs authorities notified the police in Cincinnati that an arrest warrant had been issued for Anna. Anna was picked up by police and questioned about the ordeal as soon as she returned to Ohio. At first, Anna stuck with her story that she didn't know George, but police advised that they knew she had signed him into the same hotel in Colorado where she and Oscar stayed. Then Anna changed her story to say that she had met him on the train and felt sorry for him since he was alone and not in good health. George's relatives, however, told police that he had been in great health until he met Anna. They went on to say that George believed he was traveling to Colorado to live at a ranch that Anna owned there. Anna still clung to the story that she had only met George on the train, but when police talked to little Oscar, he confirmed that his mother had bought the train tickets for the three of them at Union Terminal in Cincinnati, and that his mother served George several drinks while on board the train. Because of the poison found in George's body, and the suspicions surrounding Anna, the bodies of two of her recent victims, Jacob Wagner and George Zellman, were exhumed and re-examined by the coroner. It was discovered that Jacob had also died of arsenic poisoning, while George had succumbed to Croton Oil Poisoning. Croton oil was apparently a popular home remedy for many ailments at the time, but large quantities of it were deadly, causing a particularly painful and miserable death. As an aside, during World War II, Croton oil was added by the U.S. Navy to the alcohol that fueled torpedoes aboard its ships to prevent the sailors from drinking the fuel, although the innovative sailors devised a means of separating the oil from the fuel. After these discoveries, Anna was arrested and put in jail to await trial. Her story was all over the newspapers, both locally and nationally. She was dubbed the Blonde Borgia after the infamous Lucretia Borgia, who poisoned her enemies in Renaissance Italy. She was also a bit of a celebrity in prison, happily giving interviews and treated like royalty by other inmates and even some of the staff. She would pose for photos, sometimes with Oscar. In the meantime, other victims of Anna, who managed to survive, came forward to tell their accounts of how she swindled and tried to kill them. Evidence was found during searches of her home, including a bottle of Croton oil obtained from a local pharmacy. Eager to get the trial moving and avoid a potential extradition to Colorado, the Hamilton County prosecutor in Cincinnati arraigned Anna for the murder of Jacob Wagner on August 10, 1937. The trial commenced on October 11, 1937, with Philip Hahn remaining in total support of his wife. The jury was composed of 11 women and 1 man, which was extraordinarily unusual for that time. After a 3-week trial, the jury deliberated for only 2 hours before returning a unanimous verdict of guilty with no recommendation of mercy. This meant that Anna would automatically face the death penalty for her crime. In mid-November 1937, Anna appeared before Judge Charles Bell in Hamilton County Court for her sentencing. Although he was uncomfortable in doing so, Judge Bell declared that Anna would die in the electric chair on March 10, 1938. Her attorney filed a slew of appeals over the following months, delaying her execution. Ultimately, both the Ohio Supreme Court and U.S. Supreme Court heard appeals, with both deciding against blocking her execution. Anna's rescheduled execution date was set for December 8, 1938. Like many others, Anna never thought she would be executed, primarily because she was a woman. Early that day, she awaited word from her attorneys on a stay of execution while neatly dressed with her nails polished by fellow inmates. She did write 4 letters that day and entrusted them with her attorneys. No stay of execution ever came, and Anna was put to death the night of December 8, 1938, at the age of 32 for the murder of Jacob Wagner. While she verbally maintained her innocence until the end, Anna's letters were sold to the Cincinnati Enquirer and did contain confessions of her guilt. Proceeds from the sale of her letters were put into a trust for the care of her son Oscar, who was eventually placed with a foster family. Not long after Anna's death, Philip was spotted around town with another woman. Anna's body was buried in the Mount Calvary section of Holy Cross Catholic Cemetery in Columbus. Although initially unmarked, her grave was later marked by a headstone made by inmates at the Ohio State Penitentiary. She was the first woman to be executed by electric chair in Ohio. That's it for this episode of Great Lakes True Crime. Again, if you like the show, please tell a friend, and please follow us on Facebook or Twitter. Just search for Great Lakes True Crime. This has been Steve, your host and producer. Thanks for listening, guys.